Before you move on, I want to make sure that we are advancing the photos along with the testimony. So, Jeff, if you could get up the images that Cliff and Steve have up for us, because there are images of the satellite imagery. So I just want to find out if we have that, and then we can have them describe those images if they're available. Go ahead, Steve.
Lieutenant Colonel Williams, who was the colonel whose personal Humvee was purportedly shot at, did an interview with CBS that afternoon before it happened. And he is quoted as saying, "If you are trying to send a message by firing and harboring yourself inside of an area like this, we want to send the message right back that you can be reached. We will find you and surgically remove you." I'm not a surgeon, but Spectre gunships are used. They're not a precision weapon. There's no precision to it, as there is with surgery. So to have him compare that is a little odd. But that's not the route he took. He didn't go into too much detail, apparently, of how it was going to be done. But I have video evidence that was unfortunately too long to bring. But I do have video evidence of the airstrike itself. And the most disturbing part, because you can't see a whole lot from where we stand, it's about a couple of kilometers outside the gate, is that the parties on the rooftops, our roofs were set up in a semicircle around this post, and just building after building, and everyone was told to grab their chairs and popcorn and jerky and go on top and watch this thing go down. I was there. I probably hooped and hollered as well. There were people quoted on the video saying, higher up NCOs saying, "Can you hear Haji die? We don't have Zone 5 anymore because they just blew the out of it," etc. And lots of cheering, lots of jeers, and good times for the show that they put on for us that night. And at the time, you don't really take in, you know there's civilians there, but that's what we're supposed to do. So never got a true body count out of it. We never went to inspect the rubble afterwards. But I can tell you that it happened. And he can tell you that it happened. He was on a separate building, a different vantage point, watching the same show. So I don't think I have much more with that.
And you gentlemen have a video of the house raid, is that correct?
Yeah, actually I wanted to get, that's going to be at the very end.
Okay, at the end.
We're going to be just a couple more things briefly here.
Okay, you got it.
I mean, to wrap up the C-130 attack part, like I said before, I don't recall exactly how long it circled. These planes circle until they pretty much expend ammunition. But the main weapon it used in this raid was the 40-millimeter cannon, which is an automatic loading cannon that can fire maybe, I don't know, a round every half second or so. And it's a 40-millimeter round, which is like a hand grenade, basically, exploding. And it fired, I don't know, maybe 100 of these things. It was so many. But I do recall it was the most destructive and devastating thing that I've ever witnessed before or since. And I would like to emphasize that this building, besides having a handful of people with rifles who didn't really know how to shoot them, and a handful of people who spotted for mortar tubes who didn't really know how to spot and are very inaccurate, besides them, it was packed full of innocent families. And it was in no way a legitimate military target. If you wanted to get rid of the guys in there who were actually doing something, there's different ways to do it. We worked with the 82nd Airborne, who had plenty of snipers. We could have, one sniper over the course of a week could have solved the problem with zero damage to civilian person or property. One more thing to add.
Another thing to add, one of their main objectives was to rid the camp of the mortar fire that we got almost daily. And we were mortared from the day that we got there until the day we left, including the days after this target was destroyed. So he may have done some surgery or what have you, but I can assure you that I still have plenty of issues when I with loud noises and et cetera by mortars landing daily on and around my post. And I just don't see any justification for it all, I guess.
And two more things about me before I turn the rest of my time over to Steve. And 21st of January 2004, I have exact dates because I wrote about all this in my journal. A civilian was run over and left for dead by one of our Humvees. I'll be brief about this. We had been on a long night mission. We'd been out all night. We were tired. We wanted to go home and hit the rack. And there'd been a lot of shooting that night. It had been a real bad night, and we just wanted it to be over. We wanted to go home. And so these guys ahead of us were coming in the gate, and apparently they ran somebody over. Because we were so tired and we were so sick of it all and we just wanted to go home and hit the hay, they didn't say anything. The staff sergeant, I mean, I know the guys in the Humvee. I know the driver. He's one of my best friends. And the staff sergeant in command of the patrol was also a very close friend of mine. He's since been killed over there. But the staff sergeant ordered the driver to continue driving, and then he also ordered everyone else on the patrol not to say anything about it. Not because they were afraid of getting in trouble for killing somebody, but because he didn't want to have to wait around and fill out a report, or he didn't want to have to be inconvenienced. They just wanted to go home and go to sleep. And again, as I said in my opening statement, these are not bad people. These are not criminals. These are not monsters. These are people like any of us, but they're put in a horrible situation, and they respond horribly. And when you're around that much death, running over some guy who was standing in the road is not a big deal. What's a big deal is getting stuck and being separated from your cot for another 2 or 3 hours having to talk about it. So they didn't say anything. We rolled up on them, and then, we were kind of the idiots who stopped and called it up, and we got stuck out there for 3 hours. And after that, that never happened again. We made sure that if we ever saw anybody dead or anything like that, we just kept going, because it wasn't worth the trouble. 21st February 2004, civilians killed and wounded by American small arms fire. During another nighttime patrol, and this was an unusually friendly neighborhood, whatever that means, but this was a neighborhood where people came out and waved. People didn't really seem to hate us. We're riding around and we hear an IED blast up ahead in the road, and we hear AK-47 fire, and then we hear M16s firing back, which is our rifles. So we can tell that some of our people are in a fight up there. So we race ahead, eager to get into some of the action. At the time, we considered ourselves unlucky because by the time we showed up, the fight was over. That's how combat is in Iraq, at least when I was there. It was very quick. You'd be out for 9, 10 days straight, nothing would happen. And then for about 8 seconds, all hell would break loose. And then it'd be over. And then you just have the mess to pick up. But anyhow, there was a patrol of 82nd Airborne guys, infantry guys, in Humvees, and they were packed in these unarmored fiberglass Humvees with machine guns pointing out on either side. They were attacked by maybe 2 or 3 insurgents. They were in an open field, laying in sort of a ditch across an open field to their left. On their right was the civilian neighborhood, which was just housing for disabled military families from the Iraqi army, which was our understanding. Basically, they had taken fire from the left. Some of the guys also had heard gunfire coming in from the right. So the whole platoon returned fire in both directions. And an 82nd Infantry platoon is no laughing matter. When they all get going, that's a lot of automatic weapons. That's a lot of guys who know how to use them and have used them a lot. That's a lot of firepower going off on both sides of the road there. So the firing stopped immediately. They sent some guys, ran out into the field, didn't find any insurgents, looked for blood trails, didn't find any blood trails, didn't find anything but some empty shell casings. And then the rest of them had immediately dismounted and kicked in the door of this house that they had taken fire from, and they were going to raid the house and maybe catch the guy who'd been shooting at them. Well, what they found in this house, and this is a story that I've told 1,000,000 times, and trust me, I do not enjoy telling it again. When they kicked in the door of this house, where somebody had been firing from them from the roof, what they found was an entire extended Iraqi family. And they were celebrating a wedding. And for those of us who've been in Iraq, or at least in Baghdad, you know that any excuse they have is a good excuse to get on the roof and shoot their guns in the air. It's just a celebratory thing. We've all heard of celebratory fire being mistaken for hostile fire, and this is a textbook case of that. Old grandpa or whoever was on top of the roof cutting loose with his rifle because he was so happy that his daughter was getting married. Meanwhile, this 82nd patrol in his front yard gets ambushed from across the road, and they return fire in both directions. And just to be brief on this, they hit 3 people inside the wedding party. One of them was an adult man who was, slightly wounded. Another young girl, maybe 10, was slightly wounded. But what really got me was there was another girl who was maybe 6 or 7, and she was dead. I looked through I was in the gunner's hatch of the Humvee. I didn't get out and go inside the house, but I looked through the doorway, and that was the first time that I had ever seen a little 6-year-old girl dead, and not just, died of, drowned in a swimming pool or something. She had been shot by a bunch of, teenage American kids.